the day I pitched my tent beside my own private lake. I never expected to hear the sharp crackle of a police radio, interrupting the sound of birdsong. But there they were, 2 officers, looking apologetic as they stepped over wildflowers and approached me like I was some kind of outlaw. "Sir, we've had a report of illegal camping in the neighborhood, illegal camping on my land." At first I laughed, thinking it was some kind of mistake. But then I saw her, clipboard in hand, sunglasses too big for her face, and an attitude like she ran the state. It was Marcia from the HOA, the self-appointed sheriff of Serenity. She pointed dramatically at my tent, screeching something about community regulations. I calmly explained the land was mine. She smirked. "We have jurisdiction over this entire area. You can't just do whatever you want." What she didn't know was that her little jurisdiction had been built on a lie, and I had proof. Not just documents, but decades of trespassing, misuse, and manipulation by the HOA that was about to come crashing down. So I packed up my marshmallows and got to work. Because if they wanted a fight, they picked the wrong camper. Let me rewind a bit. The lake had been in my family for generations, tucked behind a patch of pine forest, hidden from the main roads. When my grandfather passed, the deed came to me. And with it, a thick file of documents, surveys, maps, and old photographs that proved the lake and its surrounding 15 acres were privately owned. But the HOA didn't care about history. They cared about control. You see, the neighborhood had slowly crept toward our land over the years. First, it was a sidewalk easement that accidentally ran along our southern edge. Then came the benches, the HOA-funded dock for all residents to enjoy, and finally the walking path that looped halfway around the lake. I had let it slide because, honestly, it didn't bother me, until they came after me. It started innocently enough. A letter from the HOA, welcoming me to the community, despite the fact I didn't live within their mapped boundary. Then came the invoice for annual maintenance dues amounting to over $200. I called to clarify. Marcia answered, "Oh, that lake is part of our recreational zone now. Everyone uses it. You benefit, so you pay." I explained the legal ownership. She brushed it off. "Paperwork is paper. We operate on precedent." That statement would later bite her harder than she could imagine. But back then, I still tried to be civil. I sent them copies of the deed, a legal description of the property, even GPS-tagged drone photos. I thought that would be enough. 2 weeks later, I found a laminated no camping sign nailed to one of my trees. Then a neighbor's kid told me his mom said I was squatting on public land. Then came the threats of fines, and then the police. But that was just the beginning. After the police visit, things spiraled faster than I could have imagined. I thought the officers would shut it down once they saw the deed. Instead, they advised me to work it out with the HOA. Right, like reasoning with a raccoon guarding a trash can. The next week, I found orange construction stakes in the ground. Apparently, the HOA was planning to build a gazebo on community lakefront property, aka the north shore of my lake. I called the county. Permits had been filed, under a parcel number that didn't match mine. When I showed up at the next HOA meeting, yes, I crashed it. Marcia nearly spat out her LaCroix. "You're not a resident here. You can't speak. But you keep charging me fees. Sounds like I'm part of your club." That didn't go over well. Neighbors began whispering. Some were shocked, others amused. But many believed Marcia. After all, she carried herself like she was untouchable. Then came the sabotage. One morning, I discovered fish guts dumped at the edge of my property. The next, my mailbox was ripped off. A week later, I caught someone trying to spray paint over my private property signs. So I installed cameras, motion-triggered, infrared. Hidden. The footage was shocking. HOA board members walking their dogs through my woods, kids carving initials into trees, Marcia herself leading a nature walk along the lakeside trail, confidently stating to the group, "We maintain this area with community funds." I started keeping a log, every incident, every trespass. Then came the letter that snapped it all. Final warning: unauthorized structures must be removed. Failure to comply will result in legal action. They were referring to my tent. I had had enough. It was time to fight back, and I had the perfect plan brewing. First step, I lawyered up. My cousin's husband, Derek, is a real estate attorney with a special interest in property line disputes. When I showed him my documentation, he actually laughed. "They're toast," he said. "We filed a cease and desist within 48 hours, demanding the HOA stop all activities on my property and remove all unauthorized structures, including the dock." The letter included high-resolution drone photos and timestamps from my camera footage, just to twist the knife a little. Then came the public move. I bought signage, not your average Home Depot variety. We're talking custom. Metal signs with GPS coordinates, parcel numbers, and bold red lettering. Private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. I had them mounted at all trail access points. Then I added motion sensor floodlights at night. Next, I contacted the county records office. Turns out, the HOA had been filing maintenance, reimbursements using public tax forms for improvements on my land. That's fraud. And the best part? I got it all on record. I sent copies of my report to the county, the state attorney general, and the HOA's insurance provider. But I wasn't done. Derek and I compiled a 47-page report detailing every incident of trespass, vandalism, misuse of funds, and unlawful construction. With each entry, we included time-stamped images, GPS-tagged, drone views, and even neighbor testimony. Then I hosted a lakeside press conference. Yep, I invited the local news. Today, I want to clear up a community misunderstanding. I began, standing next to my tent, which I'd pitched again for symbolic flair. This land has always been privately owned. The HOA has knowingly trespassed, lied, and manipulated residents. And now it ends. The footage aired that night. But the biggest blow? The next HOA meeting. I attended with a formal court injunction in hand and served it in front of everyone. The look on Marcia's face? Worth framing. And that was only the beginning of the reckoning. 3 days later, I received a formal letter from the county. All HOA development permits related to the lakefront were revoked pending investigation. Then, the real hammer dropped. A county investigator showed up with a surveyor and 2 deputies to verify my claim. The lines matched exactly what my grandfather's deed outlined. The dock, the benches, the path, the half-built gazebo frame, all were clearly on my side of the line. By week's end, the county issued a full cease and desist order. And the HOA? They were slapped with citations for unauthorized land use and misuse of funds. The county prosecutor began reviewing the case for civil violations. Their insurance company pulled coverage pending investigation. Fines started stacking. Residents finally turned. I walked outside one morning to find a line of neighbors waiting. Some offered apologies. Others asked if they could help clean up the mess. One elderly gentleman, Mr. Carter, handed me a fresh-baked pie and whispered, "We should have listened sooner. Marcia?" She resigned, publicly, with a one-line statement emailed to residents. Effective immediately. I resigned from the HOA board. No signature. No farewell. Just gone. My favorite part? The very next HOA newsletter featured a quote, right beneath a photo of the lake with the words, "Know the boundaries before you overstep them." Guess who they credited? Me. I didn't even write it. But I'll take the win. In the end, I didn't want revenge. I just wanted my land to be respected. My family's legacy, the lake we cared for, and the boundaries that were never meant to be trampled by bureaucracy and ego. But I learned something valuable. Bullies don't always come with fists. Sometimes they wear khakis, carry clipboards, and speak in HOA bylaws. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a well-placed sign, a quiet lawyer, and a camera with night vision. To everyone watching this, if someone tries to rewrite your rights, don't let them hold the pen. Know your property. Know your laws. And never be afraid to pitch a tent right in the face of entitlement. Drop a comment below. What would you have done if Marcia came after your land? Or just comment "justice served" if you stuck around till the end. And hey, if you're thinking of joining an HOA, maybe walk the property lines first. Thanks for watching. And remember, you don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes, a silent tent and a stack of receipts will do just fine.